Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm your host Sandman. Today I'm going to be talking about the Jimy Longs starter set. Let's get into it. First off, I am currently a brand ambassador for Jimy Longs, so this is completely not a biased review. Like I'm just telling you guys that from the start. I absolutely love his tools. I love this set. This is my #1 recommended set when I go to Locksport meetups because he's a North American manufacturer. It's easy to get his tools. It's the shipping and handling is very seamless. It's just a really wonderful set of tools. So I would highly recommend, if you are in North America, to check out these tools if you have not already. This starter set comes in 23 thousandths of an inch thick and 301 high yield stainless steel. What does that mean? None of it really matters, but there are 5 different tool steels on the market to date used for lockpick manufacturing, and this is the strongest tool steel currently available on the market, boasting around 200,000 pounds per square inch of ultimate tensile strength in its raw steel form before they actually make it into a lockpick. But Jimy Longs picks are very unique in the sense that they have this curvature here as we go to the shoulder of the shank, and before the shank meets into the handle itself, this shoulder here has a curve here because they studied under finite element analysis, FEA, finite element analysis, which is where you place this underneath some type of visual aid to be able to see the steel and any heat indicators, and they placed pressure, or I guess force, on this pick shank, and the shank will kind of like light up in different colors and show you where it actually is creating most of the stress in the tool steel. And they redesigned the shank as we had previously known it for the last 70 years. They redesigned the shank to be thicker here at the base because that is where most of the stress was being experienced with this particular tool. So we do have a rake, a triple peak here, and we have a short flat hook, and we have a double-ended turning tool in the same tool steel right here. And we also have injection molded handles that also have a fiberglass mix into that injection mold. You cannot feel fiberglass, my friends, no matter how sensitive you think you are. The fiberglass just adds to the rigidity and the bonding of the injection mold onto the pick. And we have a full length, what would be called a full tang shank here. So we have a cutaway here, and we can actually see some metal in here. So this pick goes all the way to the back. The benefit of that, some people believe that if a lockpick has a full tang, then we are going to have better feedback as we are picking, especially dealing with security pins in some locks. They act differently, they jump around, they move around. We want to be able to feel what's going on, and that vibration or that feedback is going to transmit from the profile of the pick all the way to the back where our hand is. But that feeling is going to be subjective, and it's very hard to articulate. So, that's just going to be, personal preference. So we have the rake, we have the flat hook, we have the double-ended turning tool. My favorite lock to get people recommended, or that I recommended people to get started on, is a Brinks 4-pin padlock here in North America. These are found at every single hardware store, especially Walmart. You just go to Walmart and you can buy one of these for like $5, or a package of 4 for around $20 USD. So let's talk about how to use these tools starting off. So let's start off with the rake, and we're going to use what I call the Sandman methodology here. So we're going to take the long-ended turning tool for raking and the short end of this turning tool for single pin picking. Let's learn the raking technique first. So we're going to take that long end, we're going to place it at the bottom of our keyway. This gap right here is called the keyway. The key fits in here, and the pins are here at the top. The pin stack is right here. We don't want to pick the lock like this. They do pick locks like this in Europe, and locks are installed this way in Europe. In North America, they're installed this way. Why? That's a completely different discussion. But for now, just know that this is the orientation the lock needs to be in your preferably left hand. If you're right-handed, then just do the exact opposite of what I'm saying. So I'm going to hold the lock in my left hand, and I'm going to place the long end of this turning tool here at the bottom of my keyway, and I'm just going to let go. I'm going to take my index finger, I'm going to place it here on the tensioner, but I'm not going to apply rotational force just yet. I'm just going to stabilize that tensioner. I'm going to take my rake where the peaks are pointed at the top. I want to see mountains, not valleys. I want to see mountains. And I'm going to place this at the top of the keyway right there. Now I can start to apply rotational force. If I start to apply my rotational force right now, and then I try to stick my tool in, I'm gonna have trouble sticking the tool in. So we're gonna try to help ourselves a little bit here. Place it at the bottom of the keyway. We're just gonna stabilize it. We're gonna place our tool, peaks up at the top of the keyway, and I'm going to apply my rotational force here, about as much pressure as it takes to push an enter key or a space bar key on a keyboard, or a little bit heavier than that. We don't want to go much lighter than that. I do want a decent amount of force, but force is always going to be subjective. So the best I can do is describe it in that fashion. I'm going to overhand grip. I'm not going to underhand grip my rake. I'm going to overhand grip my rake. I'm going to get a full purchase on it. I'm going to brace my hand either against my chest or my belly or my desk. And while applying rotational force, I'm going to grab my rake, I'm going to lift up against those pins, and I'm going to zip out. And now I have an open lock. Let's try that again. Place the tensioner or the turning tool at the bottom of the keyway. Slight bit of tension here just to stabilize it so it doesn't fall out. Apply my rake. I'm going to brace myself either against my chest or my belly or the bench top. I'm going to lift up on my right hand, pushing down on my left, and I'm going to apply rotational force, and I'm going to zip out. If I didn't get it the first time, I'm going to let go, and I'm going to try again. There we go. That's technique number one. That's called the zipping technique or a kinetic rake attack. Let's try actually raking or scrubbing. I'm going to, same method, stick my tool in at the top, apply rotational force, and I'm going to really need to brace my hands here. I don't want to do this in a three-dimensional environment. I want to brace my hands against something, and I'm going to scrub those pins like I'm cleaning them. Like they're dirty, they need to be cleaned. And I feel the core rotating, or excuse me, the plug rotating within the lock core, and I have an open. Let's try that again. I'm gonna start scrubbing. I need full range of motion. I don't wanna go all the way out and accidentally stab myself. I also don't wanna do this. I see people doing this all the time. You're not gonna get that lock, not in 100 years. You need full range of motion because I have 4 pins. And I need to make contact with all 4 pins. If I'm doing this for a long time and I'm getting nowhere, we're gonna stop, we're gonna reset, and try again. It could be that I'm over lifting my pins. Let's try again. There we go. I start to feel movement in the core. I back off, and I got it. When I'm raking, I can rake in this direction, I can rake in this direction. I can do circular motion, I can go flat, I can go backwards, circular motion, backwards circular, backwards circular. One thing I cannot do when I'm raking or zipping is bending the tool in this direction. That's not going to pick the lock. Rotating the tool is not going to pick the lock. Only in and out will work on raking this lock. Only in and out, only in and out, just like that. For single pin picking, we're going to use our flat hook. The benefit of using single pin picking is sometimes these locks have security pins, and security pins are specifically designed to thwart raking. So raking's really only going to work on very low, cheap, low security locks that don't have security features. We can do a lot more with single pin picking, but the learning curve is much higher. We're going to take our turning tool here, and because it is double-ended, we now have a short end. We're going to place that at the top of the keyway, not the bottom. We can use the short end at the bottom, but we cannot use the long end at the top. It'll fall out. So we're going to take that short end and place it at the top of the keyway, and I'm going to immediately place my tensioning finger. We're immediately going to place force on this tensioner to hold it in. If I don't immediately place tension on this tensioner in this particular method, single pin picking, it's going to fall out. So the original method, the first method, was I place it at the bottom long end. I don't have to touch that tensioner, but because this is a short end, I'm placing it at the top. It's going to fall out unless I add rotational force. I'm going to take my flat hook with the flat portion facing up, not down, and I'm going to insert at the bottom of the keyway. I can go ahead and apply rotational force because I'm not really interacting with the pins, just to get the tool in here. Okay, goes in at the bottom. I insert it at the bottom because this gives me more clearance to single pin pick the pins, and I'm leveraging or levering off the bottom of the keyway. The bottom of the keyway here is a fulcrum. My hand is the effort loading on the fulcrum, and the load is the pick and the pins. It's the profile of the pick. That's where the load is. So I'm pushing down. I'm going to hold this with an underhand method. Previously, we held it overhand. I'm going to go underhand just like I would hold a pencil. I'm going to make one modification to this grip. I would hold it like I hold a pencil, except I'm going to take my middle finger and I'm going to hold it out along the shank just like I would hold a chopstick. I'm going to insert at the bottom of the keyway here, and I'm going to brace my middle finger against the lock ideally. Most people are going to start out like this. Ideally, we want our middle finger touching the lock. This will allow us to really manage the depth and spacing of our pick to feel for those pins. It just gives us more control. If you start out like this, that's okay. Most people do. Ideally, we want that middle finger out here. So I'm going to feel pin number 1. It's springy. We're going to skip that. Pin number 2 is binding. We're going to lift that a little bit, not a click out of 2. That's okay. Let's go to pin number 3. Pin number 3 is hard and it's binding. I'm going to lift up on pin number 3 and I got a click. I felt a click and I heard a click. I'm continually holding my rotational force here. I'm not letting go. I can pull my tool out and not lose any of my progress, but we set pin number 3. We're going to go to pin number 4. Pin number 4 is binding, and I got to click out of 4. Let's go back to pin number 1. Field pin number 1, it's springy. Pin number 2 is binding. I got to click out of 2. So we've heard clicks on number 3, number 4, and number 2. That's just process of elimination. Let's try pin number 1. Pin number 1 is now binding, and I got to click out of 1, and I got an open. Let's try that again. Nothing on 1, nothing on 2. Oh, I got to click out of 2. Got pin 3 is binding. Let's lift pin 3. Okay, pin 4 is binding. Let's lift pin 4. Okay, let's go back. Pin number 1, nothing on 1. Pin 2 is now binding. Okay, and nothing on 3, nothing on 4. Let's go back to pin 1, and we got an open. Sometimes we will go to pick a lock, and because we're not paying attention, we lift all the pins, and we don't feel anything. What's happening? We may have overset some of the pins. They are overlifted. So we're going to just start over. We're going to let go, and we're going to start again. 1, nothing. 2, click. 3, click. 4. Ooh, nothing on 4 this time. Let's go back to 1, nothing. 2, got to click out of 2. Nothing on 3. 4 is now binding. Okay, got to click out of 4. Let's go back to pin number 1, and we got an open. That's it, folks. I love the Jimy Longs starter set. There's nothing more simplistic than a rake and a flat short hook and a double-ended turning tool. This double-ended turning tool is in 30 thousandths, so you are going to be able to fit it into like 99% of pin tumbler keyways in all of the world. 30 thousandths is pretty much the extent of that. You really don't need to go any thinner than that, and because of the strength of the tool steel, you won't get much deformation or bending. That's all I have for today, folks. Let me know in the comments down below if I have answered any of your questions or anything that you may have had concerning the Jimy Longs starter set and the basics of using this set. I call it the Sandman method, and that is I'm going to use the longer end for bottom of keyway and for raking, and I'm going to use the shorter end for top of keyway for single pin picking. That's a very common method in the community. I call it the Sandman method, because it is a rule. I will nearly never use bottom of keyway to single pin pick a lock, because I'm just going to overset my top pins by just inserting this alone. I'm only going to use bottom of keyway when I'm raking, and I'm only going to use top of keyway when I'm single pin picking. If I place this at the top of the keyway and I try to go rake the lock, then the rake is going to pull the tool out. That's why it's the Sandman method. We have rules in this method, and I think that will help you attack some of your very first locks. Let me know in the comments down below if you think this was helpful, and I hope to catch you guys next time.